Good evening and greeting everyone from the Ecumenical Christian Center. This is the fifth talk for the ABCD, Asian Buddhist Christian Dialogue series of talk we had. And this evening we have two prominent speakers who will be speaking to us. And the session will be moderated by Reverend Prasad Matthew Achan. Reverend Prasad Matthew is an ordained priest of the Marthoma Church. He is an academician. He is a good preacher. And he lives in Bangalore and he's a close friend of ECC. So we will now hand over the time to him to moderate this evening session. Over to you, Achan.
Thank you, Minlun. Dear Father Chandran Kunnel, the director, the distinguished speakers of the day, and all participants, a hearty welcome to this particular seminar, webinar, which is conducted jointly by Ecumenical Christian Center and the Commission for Ecumenism and Dialogue of CBCI and by the Tibetan House. Today we are having two distinguished speakers. As this being the fifth session, we have been talking about suffering as the main theme in the Buddhist understanding and in the Christian understanding. Today, the first session will be led by Father Dr. Bijesh Philip. He is presently a professor in the Orthodox Theological Seminary, Kottayam. Formerly, he was the principal of the Orthodox Seminary in Nagpur. He will be talking to us on suffering as enlightenment. Welcome, Father Bijesh Philip. We are happy that you are with us today, and over to you, Father Bijesh. You have to unmute. You have to unmute. You are still mute.
Okay. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, moderator Reverend Prasad Matthew. At the outset, let me congratulate the ECC, Tibetan House, and other organizations who took initiative for organizing this kind of enlightening webinars, especially in the context of today's suffering related to the pandemic. We are reflecting on this theme from the context of different spiritual traditions. I'm asked to confine my sharing to the Christian tradition. From all spiritual traditions, we can take resources which can be used as effective tools for addressing this issue, which is beyond all borders. In the Christian tradition, cross is a very powerful symbol. Suffering is taken very seriously. The approach is not just philosophical. Christianity as a whole is centered around Jesus Christ, who suffered with us, who suffered for us. His redemptive suffering is the key of Christianity. Ancient Christian theologians presented Jesus Christ as a suffering man, a suffering servant. His life was a fulfillment of that Old Testament prophecy about the suffering servant. The Gnostic tendency and teaching was to focus on the spiritual aspects at the expense of the real humanity of Jesus Christ. It was in that context great theologians of 2nd century like Saint Irenaeus and Saint Justin Martyr tried to draw the attention to Jesus Christ, who suffered truly. And Saint Justin Martyr, that 2nd century Christian philosopher, when he explains incarnation, he says, the ineffable God became a partaker of our suffering in Jesus. And Saint Irenaeus, who wrote extensively against the Gnostic heresies, he says the impossible became capable of suffering. It's a beautiful depiction of incarnation. The general understanding about God was that he is staying away from the sufferings and realities of this world. But he says the impossible one became capable of suffering in Christ. So the suffering, which is the mystery of existence, and that suffering of Jesus was the proof of his humanity. So great theologians like Paulus Mar Gregorios Metropolitan says, suffering is the key to the mystery of existence in this world. That is why God himself, supposedly free from all suffering, decided to come and partake of it himself. Thereby lies the grand mystery. God suffers in Christ, in us, even today. So we are not glorifying suffering, but there are a lot of rich insights and source materials in this tradition to address this issue meaningfully and properly. One of the statements of Jesus Christ during his farewell meeting, especially the statement he has made in his farewell discourse, as recorded in St. John's Gospel, chapter 16, verse 21, is very insightful. He says, a woman giving birth to a child has pain because her time has come. But when her baby is born, she forgets the anguish because of her joy that a child is born to the world. So suffering is taken and presented realistically at the same time with a note of hope and the ultimate joy which is produced by the suffering. So in suffering, we can see and experience the birth pangs or the birth pain for a new world and new life. So we classify sufferings in different ways. Mental sufferings, physical sufferings, intellectual, spiritual, social, mainly based on the effect of sufferings. Let me try to classify it based on the agents who cause sufferings. One is voluntary suffering. We ourselves are our own suffering. We are creating through our positive as well as negative actions and thoughts sufferings for us. When we look at Jesus crucified, on that cross we see the result of a positive approach. That suffering is because of Jesus' love and concern for the mankind. Likewise, we can see sufferings attached to the commitment to the welfare of the world and the people around us. But the thieves crucified on both sides of Jesus Christ, they represent the suffering which is the result of wrong choice, wickedness, evil ways. We have heard about the suffering of Sister Rani Maria, who devoted her life for the upliftment of the landless, poor slave laborers, bonded laborers in Madhya Pradesh. She was going through a lot of struggle, and the culmination of that suffering was her brutal murder by the instigation of the landlords there. And the man who killed her also had to go through sufferings because he was arrested and imprisoned. And later on, we have heard that he had an enlightenment. So, suffering positive and suffering negative. These are two sides of voluntary suffering. We can see this voluntary suffering in our own life and in the experience of the world around us. Then second kind is unjust sufferings. All kinds of sufferings are unjust to a certain extent, but here my focus is on the sufferings induced by injustices, the sufferings caused by other people, and the injustice bring suffering to the victims. In the ancient Christian period, the Christians were attacked severely by the Romans, especially the authorities in the Roman Empire, unjustly on many occasions. Whenever there was a calamity or natural calamity, and they blamed this minority community as the cause of that, and they were persecuted. Injustice gives pain, brings about miseries, a lot of sufferings, and today we are experiencing it through the communalism, the misuse of religious sentiments by the fanatics, exploitation of nature, racism, a lot of issues. Then comes the accidental sufferings. Sufferings caused not by us, not by others, but it happens accidentally. But the question is whether we can say that certain natural calamities and associated sufferings are purely accidental, whether it is man-made or whether it is a mixture. It's very difficult to distinguish. In the present situation, this pandemic, it is an accidental one, but at the same time, human contributions are there. So we have to learn many things from all these kinds of sufferings. These can be used as birth pangs for the renewal of our life, the life of our world. Some kind of new births are taking place through these kind of sufferings. A great saint of Russian Orthodox Church who lived in 18th century in St. Petersburg. She is known as Saint Xenia of St. Petersburg. It was when she was just 26 years old. Her husband, who was a military officer, passed away accidentally. And after that, she lived 45 more years. But daily she was becoming or growing in holiness and also in her deep commitment to the suffering people around her. She shared her whole property with the poor. She dedicated completely her life for the gospel. And she became a very holy, saintly agent of blessings to his society. So all those tremendous changes happened because of that suffering which she experienced. That was a turning point in her life. So likewise, sufferings contribute to the molding and shaping of our life and also that of the world around us. We need not glorify sufferings, but by the power of God, we can face all challenges and transform those sufferings to be blessings. So they shape us. The sufferings enlighten us. We all agree that. And many theologians and spiritual writers have used the image of a sculptor and also a potter to explain this. A sculptor may be using hammer and other tools to cut off many unnecessary parts to give shape to a statue. But from an external observation, it may appear to be the destruction of that stone. But slowly a statue is emerging out of that. So likewise, sufferings can be used for the formation and renewal of our life and also the life of our community and the world around us. It purifies us. It leads to purifications. It gives us a light to see the vanities of this world in which we are entangled in. Saint Augustine, in his famous Confessions, mentions about a particular turning point in his life. We know that he was leading a wayward, licentious, wicked life when he was a youngster. But all of a sudden, his close friend passed away. And that was a turning point. He locked himself in his room. He prayed. He reflected about the priorities of life. That was the beginning of the transformation and exposure and experience of suffering. During this time, naturally, we will think about the limitations of our life and the finite nature of our life, and also it invites us for the reflection on death and it leads to the purification and transformation. And also, suffering gives us a spiritual awakening. Inner eyes are open to see beyond the limitations of this materialistic world. Our inner spiritual potential is awakened. The first Christian martyr, Stephen, when he was stoned to death, he had a unique vision of heaven open to him. That was really an experience, and also a beautiful symbolic presentation of the spiritual awakening and the opening of our inner life to a world beyond the senses and the experience of our senses. A few years ago, a famous US surgeon, his name is Dr. Eben Alexander, had a coma experience for 1 week. During that time, he had a transcendent experience. And after this near-death experience, he wrote a beautiful book. Its title is Proof of Heaven. In that book, he says that for the last 3 or 4 centuries, because of the materialistic ideology and recently the secular ideology, many are blinded to see the transcendent dimension of life. Earlier, he also had no spiritual vision or enlightenment, but this near-death experience turned his life upside down, and now he is an ardent exponent of the spiritual dimension of this world. And also, the suffering can inspire us to be compassionate to our fellow travelers, the victims of the sufferings. It stimulates compassion and compassionate concern for the victims of the suffering. We have heard about the heroic attempts to alleviate the miseries of the disabled by the famous wheelchair doctor, Dr. Mary Varghese. After completing her medicine, her plan was to become a gynecologist, but she met with an accident and she became a permanent paraplegic. Because of that disability, she became more sensitive to the pain and suffering of the persons with the disabilities. And she became one of the earliest pioneers of physical medicine and rehabilitation in this country. And she has contributed tremendously to this. So let me share with you a personal experience also. I was serving as a full-time faculty in our seminary, St. Thomas Orthodox Theological Seminary, Nagpur, from 1996 to the end of last year. Around 20 years ago, the seminary took initiative to start a school for the mentally challenged children from the villages around the seminary. And that school is known as Prerana Special School, and it is giving comfort and support to a lot of poor families having these kind of persons with disabilities. One of the inspirations for starting that special school was my own son, my elder son, Bijesh, who is now around 24 years old. He is a blessing in disguise. In the beginning, it was very difficult for us to cope with this painful situation. But now when we look back, we think of him as a blessing in disguise. And my wife had a normal beard and her plan was to be a teacher. But because of Abhishek, she decided to take another beard that is in special education. Now she is serving as a special educator and giving comfort to a lot of people who are having similar issues. Once we brought my son to Vellore Hospital for meeting the head of the pediatric development department of Vellore Hospital, because even after 4 years, he was not able to walk. But just before meeting the doctor, a miracle occurred. He was playing with the other children by sitting on the floor. But he tried to stand up. Then he walked a little bit. He fell down. That time, our eyes were filled with tears and hearts with gratitude to God. I have a lot of such stories, but because of the time constraint, I'm not sharing all those things. So, suffering in our lives really contributing to the betterment of our character and also commitment to different kinds of mission. When we analyze the history of the world, we can say that many great humanitarian movements and peace movements developed as a result of the painful experiences. Even UN was formed after 2 world wars. Now, a protest is taking place all over the world, and especially in US, against racism. And the stimulation and the root cause was the painful, tragic death of George Floyd. The whole world was able to see that suffocation and painful experience. That really stimulated that human compassionate concern and commitment to the equality and unity of the whole world. Today, the world is celebrating International Domestic Workers' Day. We need to be sensitive to the suffering and pain of the domestic workers, especially during this pandemic. Not only the domestic workers, the migrant laborers also. Let this pandemic and the suffering related to this bring about a new world, a new worldview. Already we have heard that it has contributed to the purification of our environment, our nature. But in order to sustain that purification and the health of our environment, inner purification is also essential. Sufferings can cause a lot of issues, and we may be stressed out, distress, frustration, disappointment, and resulting self-destruction or suicide. A lot of issues are there. But if we are using it positively, it can contribute a lot for the transformation of our world. So let me quote a statement of the famous philosopher and theologian Paulos Mar Gregorios. It is from his autobiography, Love's Freedom, a Grand Mystery. He says, my task is to use suffering that comes my way for the exercise of self-discipline and compassion. I do not know why we have to suffer, but I know that where there has been no suffering, there is no development of character. There is no need of glorifying suffering, but at the same time, together we have to address our sufferings and also help the victims of the suffering to get out of this. We are not created for suffering, but through suffering, there is an enlightenment and joy. When a blind man was brought to Jesus Christ, the question was whether his blindness was because of that blind man or because of the sin of his parents. Jesus did not try to condemn them further. Already they were going through that curse of the society. But Jesus' answer was, this is for the manifestation of the glory of God. So this is the challenge before us. How to see that glory and experience the joy and renewal through sufferings. For that, let us join hands to address these kind of issues. We are joining hands beyond all borders. Together, we have to address this issue. Greeks used to teach about apatheia, which means literally non-suffering, not affected by the situations around us. It is a non-suffering. But the Christian teaching is mainly samvedana. It is not apatheia. Samvedana is suffering with those who are suffering. That is samvedana. Experiencing the pain and empowering the victims of pain and suffering. May the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of God, give us the power and also the hope beyond all trials and tribulations to commit our lifetime and energy for the building up of a new heaven, a new sky, and new earth. I am grateful to ECC and especially to my friend and also my guru, Reverend Chandrangonnalachan, for this invitation. Thanks to the moderator and all those who are participating in this webinar. Through this technology and also because of the virus, we could transcend all borders and we could come together for enlightening each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Bijesh Philip, for enlightening us on the heading, Suffering as Enlightenment. Father started with the cross of Christ, and he has been talking to us through the ancient fathers in the Christian tradition, especially Saint Irenaeus, Justin Martyr, and Saint Augustine. Also, he has quoted from Mar Gregorios, Metropolitan of the Orthodox Church, a well-known philosopher and theologian, a guru of Indian Christians in theological development. Then he has classified suffering as voluntary suffering, unjust suffering, and accidental suffering. Then he has mentioned about the different experiences. As quoting from different experiences, he has quoted from his own experience, which is very much a stimulus for all of us to go through the experience of suffering. And he has ended with a very good note, samvedana, suffering with those who are suffering. So this is a positive presentation of the Christian stance or the Christian understanding of suffering. Thank you, Father Bijesh. We know that you have been and all, so we are thankful to you. Now we have 10 minutes to what Father Bijesh has presented. We can raise certain questions or concerns or add to what he has said. As we all say, 2, 3 or 4 people speak, Father Bijesh will respond to all the questions at the end. Please, now the forum is open for us. You can raise your hand or you can chat to me, anyone who wants to raise some questions. Or you can start speaking, no problem.
So I will ask the question, Father Bijesh.
Yes,
it was a splendid and a revelatory lecture. You were really touched by the suffering, and as we were discussing about the title, you only came up with, you know, suffering as enlightenment. Yes, you are also mentioning about your own personal, and you are also incorporating the present situations, not only in India, but also the other United States and everywhere else. And I have seen how you have developed prarana, and I also know your son, and how those things have evolved you into understand suffering. So initially, when your child, when you detected that, you know, has problems, or, you know, so what were, and then what hold you together, you and your wife, so that, you know, this gradually evolved into prarana? Could you give us some insights?
Yes. Any others, please? Any other intervention, please?
Father Bijesh, thank you so much for...
Yes, Reverend Dr. Abraham Matthew, Executive Secretary of National Council of Churches in India. Achan, please.
No, somebody else was started speaking. Please give him.
Dr. Arul Das from Vellore Medical College.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, after Arul Das, Abraham Matthew Achan, yes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Father Bijesh, for that wonderful presentation. When we were talking about Mary Varghese, I was also thinking about Dr. Paul Brand, who made a very significant contribution in our understanding of suffering. he particularly coined the term gifts of pain.
It's not
And,
audible.
Gift of Pain, Gift of Pain by Paul Brand. So he understood this suffering that many of us go through can be a gift from God. I think you have appropriately highlighted that so beautifully. And I think in a context where suffering is a daily reality for many of us, to see the divine dimension or to see the unseen dimension in suffering is really helpful to live with suffering. Thank you so much for your contribution.
Thank you. Abraham Matthew.
Thank you, Bijesh, for the wonderful presentation. Especially your presentation really, take us to a different level, since you also express your own experiences. But the question now that I have, especially when we have certain imposed sufferings in India, especially I'm in Delhi, and I can see the people, the migrant people who were traveling, transcending distances. And that was a kind of suffering that they were going through. And their daily life is also was an imposed suffering, because the government machineries or anything that imposed a certain suffering upon them. The large part of India, the Dalits, tribals, and all are going through these kind of imposed sufferings. There, cross is showing us another one, because a resistance to this suffering may lead us to suffering, but at the same time, that resistance is important. That can also be seen as part of suffering. That's I just would like to, how do you see that? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Achan. Just one more person can raise question. One chance for one more person. I think Bijesh, you can respond to the discussion.
I know that friends who raise these questions know the answers also, but of course they are giving us an opportunity for discussion. The first one is a personal question. Chandrangulam Nailachan asked me about the factors which really kept us together and supported us to address the pain of having a special child. There are a lot of factors are there. Many friends and relatives supported us, but above all, the grace of the Lord. See, when I was studying in our seminary for BD, one of the verses which really inspired me a lot was Saint Paul's statement in Philippians chapter 4, verse 30. I can do all things with Christ who strengthens me. That means I can face all situations with Christ who strengthens me. That was really an inspiration for us. And also daily we are praying, hallowed be thy name. So how to glorify God's name? Everything in our life is an opportunity for that. Always that thought was in my mind. We mutually encouraged and empowered with these kind of insights. So we thought of turning this stumbling block also into a stepping stone for a mission. I am grateful to God for giving us that grace and vision. Dr. Aruldas' question, it was not audible, so I could not hear it properly. I just heard one name, Paul Brand, Dr. Paul Brand. Maybe that's a reference to Dr. Paul Brand's intervention in the life of Dr. Mary Varghese.
He said, Father, he
Ah.
said about gift of pain. Gift of pain.
Oh, gift of pain.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that's a wonderful insight, a concept also. Gift of pain. And Dr. Mary Varghese and people like her are really a gift of pain to the world. Pain is enlightening. Just let me quote a few sentences written by Dr. Paul Brand regarding Dr. Mary Varghese. There was no doubt that Dr. Mary Varghese physical limitations were a very positive advantage in her ability to inspire the leprosy patients. They used to look at their own deformities and be depressed. With Mary, they saw a person who was more paralyzed than they were, and yet she could operate and do a wonderful job. If she could do so well, then they could too. The deformity of her face was more obvious than their own facial marks. Her feet were more useless than their damaged feet. There was hope for them too. See, they are becoming inspirations for the victims of sufferings. Dr. Abraham Matthew Achel's question is very, very crucial, very pertinent to our situations. Whether the churches and religious communities are taking this side of suffering seriously. Achan used the expression embossed suffering. Exactly the same thing I also meant by the expression injustice-induced suffering or unjust suffering. The Dalits, the tribals, and the migrant workers, and also people belonging to the minorities, they are becoming victims because of the unjust dealings and decisions of the authorities, administrators, and leaders. There should be a resistance towards this. Earlier, especially in the early Christian period, the emphasis was on the passions and negative thoughts and sinful passions which cause these kind of issues. How to address those passions and purify our inner life. But that need to be complemented with this spirituality of combat, as highlighted by the famous theologian Dr. M.M. Thomas. Without such a prophetic resistance, there will not be change and renewal in our society. So a personal mystical dimension and spiritual formation need to be complemented with this spirituality of combat. Then only our Christian vision, spirituality, and mission will be a balanced one. There is no doubt about it. I know that Achan and many others are taking the issue of the migrant workers very seriously these days, especially under the banner of NCCI. All the best for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bijesh, for your presentation and your response to the interventions. Thank you for those who have participated in the discussion also. Now we move to the second session. This session is suffering in the eyes of Buddhist master. This is being led by Venerable Lama Lobsang Dorjee Paljor, who was an ordained monk ordained by His Holiness Dalai Lama. When he was 11 years old, he walked for a month from Tibet and reached India. He is now doing his research, which in their tradition it is called study for Geshe. That is a research for getting doctoral degree in our understanding. So those who are graduated in such researches will be later called Geshe, as we call as doctor. So Venerable Lobsang is a learned speaker and a good leader among the monks and in the Buddhist tradition. So welcome Venerable Lobsang to this webinar, and it is now up to you and over to you. Please speak to us.
Good evening to all who present here, and especially good evening to the Father Matthew Chandrakuna, Director of ECC, and my teacher and moderator Reverend Prasad Matthew, and my fellow speaker Father Bijesh Philip. And can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm very happy, and it's my honor to present here and give a talk on suffering in the eyes of Buddhist master. And I would like to thank the Father Matthew Chandrakuna. I have a personal contact with him, and I learn a lot from him. And I also attended the philosophy class at Damaram College. I did the diploma on world religion at Damaram College. I attended the class with the Kishan brothers there for 1 month. So I learned a lot from the Christianity in the terms of the education, the terms of the administration. Especially I'm very I'm very suppressed by the Christian administration, the way Christian administer the whole system. And so I personally asked the Father about the Christian administration. So I learned a lot from the Christianity. So this is the way I think that how to improve oneself, learning from the different system, learning from the different tradition. So at the same time, I think that there are a lot of the things that the Buddhists can contribute to the Christian brothers, sisters, and other human beings in the terms of the psychology, in the terms of the mind training and epistemology, so the logical thought. And so I think based on this idea, based on this motivation, so I would like to extend you my new translation here. I have translated on this one, how to take suffering into path, how to transform suffering into the inner energy. So I have personally translated a new teaching, which I personally feel very powerful, very inspiring. So I have recently translated it for you. So without taking much time, I would like to go through it. So let me share it you. Yes, can you see? Right? Hello?
We can hear.
Okay, right.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank
Lobsang.
you. Yeah, right. So this actually there so far I think the many masters from the master philosopher speaker from the Christian tradition and from Buddhist tradition touched the what is suffering in the philosophical point. So I would like to touch the how to transform those suffering. We all have the experience of suffering. We all have the experience of illness. This is true. This is true. But now the question is, how can we change or transform those suffering into the blessings, into the energy, inner energy? How to take those suffering into the path of spiritual teaching? So I have translated a new teaching here. So this is composed by the Jesel Thomas Sambo. He was one of the great master in Tibet in 13th century. He meditated for more than 20 years. So he was one of the great. He was considered that time as one of the Bodhisattva, the one who practiced bodhicitta, the mind for enlightenment. So he had composed one, yes, he has composed the teaching that is taking suffering into the path. How shall we take the suffering into the path? How can we transform those suffering, the old illness, into the inner energy to improve oneself? So based on my motivation to help those Christian brothers and sisters and those human beings that are suffering during this time, I have translated this teaching. So let me share you. I would like to go the stanza by stanza. There are only 6 stanzas. So let's see here. If this illusory body of the self and others get ill, the suffering of that illness should bring me joy, since it extinguishes the negative karma accumulated in the past. Actions of spiritual practice, though various, are meant to cleanse the two obscurations. So, what do you mean by this stanza? So, it means that whether you or me, so when we get ill, so then you should think that this suffering or this suffering of illness should bring me joy. You should feel that, oh, I'm grateful. It's wonderful to have such an illness. So then you should be feel proud to have such an illness. You don't feel disappointed to have such a suffering illness, but rather you should feel that this is an opportunity, this is a blessing for me to have such an illness. Because there are so many reasons, but here I would like to touch briefly, since this suffering of illness extinguished the negative karma accumulated in the past. That means this is the now chance for you to get rid of those negative karma you have accumulated in the past, because suffering doesn't come without cause and condition. There should be some cause and condition that you have created in this lifetime or in the past lifetime. So when you suffer, when you have the illness, so this is the opportunity to extinguish the negative karma accumulated in the past. So that means you don't need to suffer in the future, in this lifetime or next time. So this is the now chance for you to eradicate those negative karma. And so this suffering of the illness is action of the spiritual practice, you should think that, oh, now this is the time for me. This is the opportunity for me to do the action of the spiritual practice. This is the spiritual practice. Because the spiritual practice, there are many forms, there are various forms. You can practice the various forms into the practice of path, into the development of your inner energy. So these practices are the mean to cleanse to obscuration, means they are the many obscuration which obscure us to see the true reality, to reach the enlightenment. So in this way, it means that we have the suffering. When you have the suffering of illness, according to this sentence, this stanza, so the master Thomas Sambo think that when he suffer, he feels happy to eradicate those negative karmas that accumulate in the past, because we have created, because when we suffer, we have created the karma, negative karma, or the negative cause. If we are not supposed to suffer those results in this lifetime, then we may need to experience those illness in the next life. Next life may be in the hell or somewhere, or in the animal forms. So if we are, I think if we are supposed to, we are supposed to experience that suffering. For example, let's say the stomach ache. If I have a stomach ache on this human body, so then at least there are the many doctors and nurses, and I can go to the doctor. I can see the doctors. I can take the medicine. There are the many my friends who give me help me, and there are many friends. So there's many opportunities even. But if the illness, if I'm supposed to experience in next life, if I am supposed to born as an animal, then on the very animal, the body, if I am going to experience that illness, then how much difficult, because I don't say that I am suffer from the stomach. I cannot say that I am suffering from the stomach, and I cannot seek for the medicine. So then what should I do? So then just suffering and try to drink some, maybe I drink some water, and maybe I eat some grass, rather than that what I can do. So from that point, I think it is the very opportunity for us. It's a great opportunity when we suffer on this the body, because there are the many chance to eradicate those suffering, and the plus we can think that this suffering is helpful for me and to eradicate my negative karmas, and plus the Bodhisattvas think that plus on his suffering he also tried to take the other suffering. He tried to share his own happiness with the others, and try to take within himself the suffering of others. This is so-called the tone, and the giving and taking, giving one's own happiness to all other sentient beings, and try to take in the suffering of others. Next, so this means when I am ill, I should feel happy. That suffering of illness should bring me joy. And next thing, if I have no illness absence of illness should bring me joy. Virtuous actions flourish if both mind and body are healthy. Striving for virtue through all deeds of three doors makes this human life meaningfully. So if I have no illness, it is still good. It is wonderful, because when you don't have the illness, that means it should bring you joy, and you can do the virtuous actions. When the healthy mind stay in the healthy body, then are much more opportunity for you to do the virtuous actions and to do the meaningful life. So whether you are ill or not, there is the reason for you to feel joy, to experience joy. And based on these things, I share you the one story from the writer of this teaching, just Tome Sambo. So when he was in Tibet, one day when he looked through the window, he saw a beggar on the street. The beggar's clothes are full of the lice. You know, the lice, this insect. It's like the bed bug, but it usually lives on the human skin. So the people around them try to kick him out, skip him, and they try to beat him, because that person get very bad smell and the clothes full of lice. So that time, this master felt a very the compassionate feeling. He generated a very compassionate feeling inside him, and automatically the tears come in his eyes, and then he try to stop his tears, and then he went to the beggars and he give them his clothes, and he tried to give them the food. And then what he did do, he took all those clothes with full of the lice, and he himself slept in that clothes, because he thought if he tried to take those lice and throw it out, all the lice will die. But he didn't do. He tried to give his own blood and flesh to those lice, because he want to give his own this body, because this body we cannot go with this body after our death. So he would like to sacrifice this body and flesh and the blood for those the lice. He did so. So then the next morning, his whole body was full of the pimples on everywhere, and his students and the teachers request him in them not to do like that, not to donate or such the flesh or the blood to those lice. So then he didn't listen to him. He didn't listen to his students and other teachers, and he said that time he remembered one of the stanza by the Indian great master Shantideva. And Shantideva, there is a very wonderful stanza in that said, I have given this body to all sentient beings for their pleasure. So whatever they do, whether they beat me, kill me, scold me, whatever they do, it depends on them. So because I've already given my body to them. So he remembered that stanza, and he tried to give. Now this is the opportunity for me to give my blood and to sacrifice this blood and flesh to those lies, because he have a very compassionate feeling inside. That brings him the inner strength to do such a great sacrifice, the virtuous actions. So, and 2 days after, wonderfully, those all lies disappear. This is one of the true story happened in Tibet. This is how the Buddhist masters exchange suffering with the happiness. They share the happiness with others, and they try to take in the others' suffering. Now next, third stanza. Now this is the one of the cause suffering for all of us, for many of the billionaires. Third stanza, let's read. If I have no wealth, absence of wealth should bring me joy. Free would I be from the unease or its protection or loss. Realize that whatever frustration from strife there be arises from the personal possessions that promote grasping attachment. So if I have no wealth, if you have no wealth, you should think that, oh, it is wonderful. Oh, there's the chance, there's the more chance to feel joy. Because if you are the billionaire, if you have the more wealth, then there is the problem. You need to, that you have the doubts or the fear. You have the fear of the losing them. You have the fear of the robbing. You fear from the robbing them. You think that, oh, someone may rob it, someone may steal it. So then you have the uneasy feeling of its protection and loss. If you don't have the such a wealth, great wealth, you don't have any such the suspicion, or you don't have any the negative thoughts. You can always feel joy. You can fill your heart with joy. And because if you have the wealth, from that wealth, so then you think that, oh, it may lose. So then there's the more chance to frustration. There's the more chance to anger, to protect them. And those frustration and the attachment that comes from that wealth. So in that point, oh, there is the reason that when you don't have the wealth, you can still feel the joy. And now next, if I have a joy, when you have a joy, what to do? There are the two things, whether you have the wealth or not, there are the two. So then when you have the wealth, what you do? If I have a wealth, presence of the wealth should bring me joy. Merit and accumulation of the virtue enhance. Can I, whatever well-being, immediate and future, there be, realize it is the result of the virtue's merit. When you have a wealth, you should feel joy, because that wealth that brings you joy, because that wealth comes from your own virtuous action, from the positive action that you have created in the past. So now this wealth you can donate for the happiness of others. You can donate those wealth to the poor people. There are the ways you can help others through giving, through the practice of the giving, because these all get from the virtuous action. You have the wealth, and now it is the chance for you to create more virtuous action, to do more positive action through the giving more and more to others. So this is the way. So then from that point, I share you one story, what the master Thome Sambo do. When he one day he was invited by a rich family, so he attended there. After he did the prayer and he gave the teaching to them, so that rich family gave him the golds and silver coins and other the precious things. So he brought with them, and he came back. So when he was on the way to his home near the forest, some robbers come. Some robbers. So robbers come and they robbed all these the golds and the precious things, and then the silver coin, and that left in his this bag. So what did the Thome Sampo? He did, oh, there is the one silver coin. You can carry it with you too. So he still gave it that silver coin, and then they try to run away, but they try to run towards the rich family who gave him the possessions. So then what he did, he said, no, you do not run or go towards this side, because the family who gave me these possessions are this side. So he instructed them not to go that way. He said, rather, you should go this way. Then you can use those possessions for your own the pleasure, your own wealth, your own happiness. So this is the way how, if we do so, there, whether we have the wealth or not, there's always chance, there's always space for us to feel joy, to experience joy. Next. Now this is the one thing. Yeah. Now this is the one practice. If I die soon, such death should bring me joy, unhindered by conditions unfavorable. I am certain to enter the unmistaken path, assisted by wholesome coupling imprints. So if I die soon, if you die soon, you don't feel that, oh, I am happy, it is wonderful. You may feel happy. But to some master, Buddhist master, who really practice the spiritual, who really practice the spiritual way, so they think that if I die soon, such death should bring me joy. The reason, because that is unhindered by the condition unfavorable, because that you are not supposed to die under the unfavorable conditions. Because there are the many, there are still chance you think that before you die, you can, that there is the time you do meditate, and there's time to visualize the other suffering taking inside you. So there are the many the ways and times. Otherwise, if you accidentally die, so then you don't have the opportunity, such the time to think of the Buddhas or the Bodhisattvas, or taking the others the illness towards you. But if you do not die under the unfavorable conditions, you have such opportunities. So if you, with such a thought, which is such a positive thought, with such a motivation to benefit others, to share your happiness with others, then through this virtuous action, through this positive cause, you are certain to enter the unmistaken path. That means you will born in the good realm, next good life, and because of these imprints, because of these virtuous actions or thoughts. So then you, even though you die soon, there is the reason that, oh, I should feel happy. Because these days many people are died unfavorably, very, what should say, the unthinkably, some died. Some recently, one very young hero committed suicide. These all are the very unfavorable conditions, unthinkable conditions. But if we die or we sacrifice our body and the flesh for the benefit of others, This is also the one reason that we should all think of him. And this is the reason why we should feel happy if I am supposed to die soon. Next, if I live long, such life should bring me joy. A harvest of experience is produced without separation of the warmth and moisture of spiritual advice. Persistent reliance brings its fruit. So, yes, of course, if we live long, we all are happy. We all want to live long as possible, right? But why we should live a long life? We should live a long life for the good actions, right? So then for the practice of the spiritual path, spiritual practice, because to have a experience, to have a rich spiritual experience, we should practice for a long time. If we practice for a longer time, so then it will bring us the true experience. For when we are born as a human being, there are many good opportunities. We can listen, we have the language, we can listen to the other human teachers. We can teach to the human brothers and sisters. So as being as a human beings, so then we should feel joy if we live a long life to do the great jobs, to do good actions. So this is the reason why we feel happy. This is the reason why we take the illness into the path. And maybe not. So then let me share the final one story related to the Buddha's time. So then when the Buddha was in the northern India, in the Sarnath, that time his first disciple, his five first disciple achieved the Arahanthood. They achieved the Nirvana, and at that time 18,000 gods also achieved the Arahanthood. 18,000 gods realized they saw the reality, the very true nature of the phenomenon. And then that time, one of his disciples asked him, Buddha, this is your first time to help those 18,000 gods to reach such the spiritual realization. That time Buddha said, no, this is not my first time to benefit them. In the past lifetime, I have helped them in many ways, many times. So out of many times, he shared one story. Buddha shared one story. So once when Buddha was born as a turtle, then the turtle was there near the river, and then one day the turtle come on the earth soil, and he slept there. He slept there this way, up and down. Then they are near that where there is this one ants hive. There are 18,000 ants. So the one ants went for to look for the food. So then he meet with the turtle. When turtle was sleeping, so then he tried to what he tried to what he did, he I mean that invited or took all the other 18,000 ants to there, and they all tried to eat that turtle. So that time, so then after some time, so then the turtle got up. So then he realized that those 18,000, the ants are eating the flesh, and they are drinking the blood. So that time he think that if I go to the river, so then these 18,000 ants will die. So then what should I do? Should I sacrifice my body and the flesh and blood for these 18,000 the ants, or should I go to the river and let them die here? So then he thought that now this is the opportunity for me to help these 18,000 ants. My life is the single life, but these 18,000 ants are the 18 lives. So then now this is the time for me to sacrifice this body for these 18,000 ants, because I may never have done such the good action for the benefit of others. He thought this is the opportunity for me to do the helpful actions to those ants. So he sacrificed his body for those ants. So he shared this story to those fellow students in Sarnath. So that's why. So then, from that point, some Buddhist, Bodhisattvas or the great masters, they feel joy in giving the life or the sacrificing their body, because they are ready to share the other suffering. They are ready to share their own the happiness to others. So this is the way how the Buddhist masters take the illness into the spiritual practice, take into part. So now the conclusion. So whatever there be, practice joy. So this is the way. Whatever there be, practice joy. Whether you are ill, whether you are not ill, whether you have a wealth, whether you are the wealthy one, or if you are poor, or if you die soon, or if you live a long life, whatever there be, wherever you are, practice joy. You can practice joy. There is the reason to feel joy. So the practice joy, you can create joy within yourself. Nobody disturb if you do not give the permission to others to disturb your the mental peace of mind, the mental world, your inner world. So there is always space for you to feel joy. There is always room for you to practice joy. So even this is one thing. Even there are the physical the phenomena that creates the disturbance or that creates a suffering, but there is the still reason for you to transform those suffering, and illness of others or the illness of yours, to transform into the spiritual practice. So I hope, and I personally also try, whatever there be, we try practice joy. And since now we don't, because of the shortage of the time, I would like to propose here. So this advice was on how to take the illness into part was offered at Sakya, Tibet by preaching monk Thome Sambo, when a Geshe who sought advice on what to do when one suffers from illness and such. So this is translated by me recently. So this is special. I translated it for you, my spiritual brothers, Christian brothers and sisters. So thank you all. Let's discuss.
Yeah, thank you very much, Venerable Lobsang Paljor, for the very enlightening talk. And you have really led us into a new experience of joy. And you have been talking to us in different conditions. What shall we do? If we are ill, if we are not ill, if we are wealthy or if we are not wealthy, if we are dying soon, if we are not having longer life, every time use that opportunity as a time for joy, experiencing joy. And you have ended the speech by saying that whatever be the experience, practice joy. It's really an experience of transforming suffering into joy, suffering into a blessing. So thank you very much on behalf of the participants. And now we have another 10 minutes for discussion. And first of all, I call Father Cherian from CBCI Dialogue Department.
Thank you, Father, Reverend Father Prasad. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, thank you. And today we are very, I think we are blessed in very much to have two wonderful paper presentations by Father Bijesh and Venerable Lama Lobsang. Thank you very much. And I think the very first, at the very outset, you have impressed, or you Venerable Lobsang, you have really blessed us with this beginning. How can we transfer the suffering into blessing? At the beginning itself was very much impressive. And I think, as you said, suffering is an opportunity for me to do the action of spiritual practice. It's a very much complementing what Father Bijesh was presenting before you, and a very much a Christian concept, as Pope Francis once told. There is no crisis as a problem in our life. Every crisis is an opportunity. In that way, every crisis is an opportunity. So crisis is not a problem. I think suffering also is a crisis sometimes in our life, but it is an opportunity. Yeah, it's an opportunity. In that way, your presentation, I think it was leading us to very much a Christian way of looking at the suffering. And also, as you said, in the ups and downs of our life, every time we should have the joy in our life. And that is also very much soothing, in our life. Yeah, thank you very much. And but still I have a small question. As you said, suffering is an opportunity for me to do the action of spiritual practice. And when I am ill, that brings me joy. When I am ill, I have a suffering, but that brings me joy because it extinguishes the negative karma accumulated in the past. Yeah, he said. And I still always have a problem that how to say, every suffering comes, or whether it comes because of my personal responsibility, or how to say, should I say, any suffering, is it because of my personal responsibility or something like that? What is your, I mean, according to Buddhist understanding, it is like that, I suppose. I think that's my question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Achan. Any other questions? Any other intervention, please?
Shall I answer one by one?
At the end, please.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, Chandranagundal Achan. Yes.
Lobsang, thank you very much for your wonderful presentation, and you are translated from the Tibetan source. these verses for us, this book, and it shows us that, you know, whatever be the situations, as Father Cherian was saying, then there is a reason for you to be joy.
Yeah.
And as we were sharing, you were also speaking about your own life, how in your younger age you were walking from Tibet to India. And then, you know, that was also too much of suffering. You might not have been knowing about all these philosophical reasonings at that time, but you might be traveling to be achieving freedom and maybe having a good life, to be a monk, all those things. And also, I remember you were sharing with me about your own life. Almost 20 years you could not be with your mother, and only I think a year before you were able to meet her after almost 20 years. So these were all suffering. And how you were translating those sufferings in terms of joy, where you be able to practice what you are preaching today.
Yeah, thank you, Achan. Next question from Minimal Matthew. Minimal Matthew.
Hello.
Hello, yes, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Venerable Lobsang, for your beautiful insights. Very thoughtful, which gave us more insights to our life on suffering. Yeah, as you have said that if I die soon, such death should bring joy. If I live long, such life should also give me joy. Okay, in this concept, okay, these are two contradictory statements. My question is, if I die soon, such death give me joy. It's a blessing. If I live long, it is said in the society that if you live long, it is a blessing. If I die soon, is it not a blessing? Can you explain it?
Yeah, both blessing.
Yeah. Any other intervention, please? If not, I think I have a question to ask you. You have said different sets of conditions for to be if we are like that, if we are not like that. So I raise you another situation, that is, if I have to suffer because of others, because of the ill work or the wrongdoings of others, as the result of other people's wrongdoings, what shall I do? Of course, your answer will be, I have to be joy, but how do you explain it? When I have to suffer because of others, because in the first session we have been talking about imposed suffering and the suffering of the migrant laborers, like that. So it comes the social arena of suffering, the social suffering as a whole. So how will you explain that one? So now you can respond to the questions.
Next one, could you clarify? I don't get it.
No, my question is only one question. The question I have explained brought into all these issues into that. My question is, if I suffer because of the other people, the ill doings of others, other things are my explanation to my question. Okay. You got the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Now you can respond to the questions. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, wonderful questions. Right. Thank you all. Wonderful questions. Yeah. The first question is, if you suffer, that is because of your, if you suffer, that is because of your personal, how's the action or not, I think, right? Actually, according to the Buddhist philosophy, there are the many causes and conditions which create you suffering. And there are the common cause and there are uncommon cause. For example, if a group of people who try to plant seeds, they all together, they help one another to plant some seeds. So they all together create a cause and conditions to plant seeds, right? To do planting. And if a person who plant a seed, a person, if that with with the heat or the soil and try to take the fertilizers, and he personally try to plant a seed, that the a person personally created a cause and condition to plant a seed. So a group, so that is the personal cause and condition to bring us such a result, to bring us such a fruit. And likewise, if a group of people, let's say the 5 people come together and plant a seed, plant a field, so that means there is the group of people, a group of people who did the multiple cause and condition, so help one another. That is a common cause. So, for example, global, like this way, there's the one way coronavirus, the COVID-19. So then these days, the most of the people are under this problem, this suffering. So from my own personal thinking, I think this is the common cause that the world has created in the past. This is because if it is not so, so then let the people who why we should suffer, why we should suffer if it is just created by one person, then why we the rest of the world should suffer? Why the rest of the world are under the problem? So, but the way that means that is created by the one way, the common cause. There should be I think the one common cause, but that common cause is how to say, that common cause may do not bring the result, but there should be some conditions. But let's see who did that conditions. Maybe that the virus is created in the lab, or maybe someone eat the flesh of the bat. So then there should be the one person who did the first condition to that cause. So now the people are how to say, seeking. They are searching for what is the cause. That means what is the man condition. They try to seek for the source of the COVID-19. That means they are seeking for the condition. What is the man condition? What is the man cause? But I think there is the one common cause. Okay. For example, all the people on the earth, they experience the warmth of the sun. So then, from the Buddhist point of view, this sunlight is we all enjoy, or we all enjoy the warmth of the sunlight. That is that sunlight, or coming from the sun, is one of the common cause. Why?
The Venerable Lobsang, can you be precise?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, this is the way. Okay, there is the personal or the group cause and conditions. That is the number one. And the second question, my life, right. When I crossed the Himalaya mountain at the age of 11, and that time really I was very young, and it took 1 month to cross the Himalaya mountains. And that time, so on the one way, I was afraid of the Chinese, the soldiers, border soldiers there. And the one way I was missing my mother because I was very young. There was no the parents with me. There is no the relatives with me. But some of my mother's friend helped me to take me to India. So that time, the why, even though they are the suffering, the illness of the suffering. So then the thing which give me energy is my mother's advice and my search for freedom and my own the personal thought. And my mother first time advised me. So then now it's the time for you to create a life which can help not only me, but the rest of the Tibetan people. So this is her on the very advice, gave me the inner, the strength. And the plus on that, I think of it very often and often. And I'm very, eager to reach to India to search the freedom of the speech and freedom of the education. So then thinking in the broad way, so then I can, even though I'm one of the youngest, the youngest who crossed the Himalaya mountain, I can face those problems. So that means it depends on the personal thoughts. If you just thinking on that suffer, then the increase. But on the way, you think that suffering is a suffer, maybe it's the suffering of the 1 month, but from the future of your life, the future outcome, so then we can bright future. So then I can challenge those sufferings. That's why I thought that I should be in India, and I should study a lot to get the Geshe degree. And through that way, I can help the mothers, I can mother and all the other beings. This is the thought, my personal thought that give me the inner strength, that help me to transform those suffering and those suffering into the joy. Okay, and this is my things. And the third one, the die. So then I think that, so I have said, if I die soon or if I live long, so then this all we can take those all situation as a opportunity, because there is the opportunity to practice joy, whatever the practice. So then these all are the blessing for not the full people, but for those wise people, for those masters who really practice spiritually. But this is not the opportunity or blessing for the full people or the common people, but this is the true source of the joy for those bodhisattvas, masters. Understand? And now maybe we don't have the much time. Otherwise, there is the one book, and I read it. I cannot read it. How he practices, because when I go through that book, the tears come automatically in my eyes. But that tears, the tears of joy, but not the tears of fear or suffering, because of such an energy he has. When I go through that book, how much suffering. Even though he tried to evil spirits, give his own imagine. He is the feel joy in himself. If
yes, you have to speed up. You have to speed up. Yeah, yeah.
Evil spirits. This is the way. It's a very wonderful. So however, so then this is the opportunity for those great masters. Okay. And because of the other ill doing, because of the other ill doing, yes, suppose we may suppose someone someone throw the stone on me, right? Let's create a situation. If someone someone clapped on the face, or someone someone hit on my head, this is the other's ill doing, and I suffer, right? I suffer from that, but I suffer from that person. I suffer from that, But maybe you feel the frustration, you may have anger. That time you should think. That time, we usually persons they get angry with that person who hit me, right? But we do not go into the deeper side, because there are on the scar on your head because of someone hit you with that stone. So then where are you angry? Where are you getting angry? You are getting angry at the stone, or that person's hand, or that person. If that you have the scar on the head, if you are angry, you should directly angry with that stone that create the scars on your head, right? If you are angry, if you are getting with that person's, oh, why you are getting the person do not do the directly create the scars on you. But so then you directly get angry with that person, but that person directly do not create the scars on your head. If you are get angry with that person, so then why that person hit on you? That person is you should feel you should feel the pity on that person, because that person hit on you because of the anger, because of negative emotion within him. Because of that negative emotions, how to say, emotion push him to do bad actions, to indulge him in automatically in negative actions. So if you want to get angry, you should get angry at angry. Okay, because that person is the person. He really want happiness. That person is really the want happiness and do not want any suffering, like us, like you, everyone, like every instance. Those who have life want to experience happiness. So you do not get angry at that person. But if you really want to get angry, you should get angry at angry. You should get angry at negative emotions in that person. This is very clearly explained by the Shantideva, one of the great Indian master, Buddhist master, one of the great thinker of the Nalanda University in 7th century. So this is the way, whether someone do the ill doing, or how to say, whether someone do the ill action or not. So then always you try to have the compassion with others. You should always differentiate between the how to say, the action do, how to say, the action and the sin and sinner. The person how to say, create action and actor. We always try to have the compassion towards all actors. But sometimes we have to object the actions, like the fighting, so like the killing others. These all are the bad actions. So that we always try to object that actions. But what we do, we always try to kill the person that who killed the person. So that creates more the negative emotions, more the crisis. Really, what we do is we should have the more pity, more compassionate feeling towards that actor, but we should object that action, negative action. For example, I shall give you the one example, and I will stop here. For example, if a mother has 3 sons, and if the one person is creating the many mischief things, mischief actions, negative actions, that mother have the more sense of concern for that his mischief son, right? Like that one, we should have the more the feeling of the compassion, sense of concern for those who create negative actions, because they indulge in the negative actions because of due to the negative emotions arising in him very often. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable, for this very enlightening talk. And today, really, we are blessed with two speakers who are very authentically talking about suffering from their own backgrounds and giving us good insights. And there were good interactions also. Thank you very much on behalf of the whole group, those who are participating in the webinar. Thank you. And also I personally thank Chandran Kunnelachan for giving me this special opportunity to moderate the session. Now over to Minlun.
Yeah, once again, we express our immense thanks to our speakers this evening, Bijesh and Venerable Lobsang, for enlightening us, helping us to see how we surface the suffering. Even adversaries of life can bring joy. That is a wonderful message that they give to us. Thank you so much. And also we thank Reverend Prasad Matthew Achan for moderating the session. Friends, before we end up session, I would like to make one announcement that our next talk will be on 23rd June, that is next Tuesday. Details of the program will be sent to you through WhatsApp and through email. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.